Asahin el Gagarim Mehain Yavozri Azrimeim Adonai Ose Shamayim V'Haaretz Al Yiten Lamot Raglecha Al Yanom Shomrecha Hinei Lo Yanum V'Lo Yishan Shomer Yisrael Adonai Shomerecha Adonai Tzilecha Aliyah Yeminecha Yomam Kashemesh Lo Yakecha Ve'yareach Balayla Adonai Shmorecha Mikol Ra Yishmor et nafshecha Adonai Yishmor tzedcha uvahecha Meyata ad olam
Kol omer kra v'amar ma'ekra, kol habasar chatzir, v'chol chasto ketzitz hasadeh, yavesh chatzir navel tzitz ki ruach Adonai nashvavo. Achem chatzir ha'am yavesh chatzir navel tzitz, u'devar Eloheinu yakum li'olam. A voice says, cry out, but I ask, what shall I cry? All flesh is like grass, and all of its beauty is like the flower of the field. The grass withers, and the flower fades when a wind from God blows upon it. Surely, therefore, people are like grass. The grass withers, and the flower fades, but the word of God endures forever. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai mi yagur be'alecha, mi yishkan bahar kachecha, holech tamim u'foel tzedek v'dover emet bilvavo. O Lord, who will dwell in your sanctuary, who will live with you upon your holy mountain. She who lives with integrity, who does what is right, who speaks the truth in her heart. Whoever does these things shall stand firm forever. I always recognized your mother's voice, your grandmother's voice. I could always hear it. If it were a crowded sisterhood class and several women were speaking at the same time, I always heard Annabelle's voice. If we were in the sanctuary and people were asking questions, I always heard Annabelle's voice. If it were a progressive field, you know, I heard your mother's voice. By the way, it's not that your mother had the loudest voice, although she had range. And it was strong. No, but it was strong in a different way. It always had passion behind it. It had determination behind it. It was focused. It was confident. It was clear. And it was articulate. And I'm going to miss that voice. It had drive to it. It was a strong voice, which meant it was a voice to be listened to. I understand very well how that voice had told the rabbi in a prior temple that he should start celebrating Sukkot, right? The temple, for some reason, stopped celebrating Sukkot. But Annabelle straightened it out. She saw to it. There is something of an irresistible force in your mother and your grandmother. She pushed forward. I understand very well how that voice would have said when she was younger that she didn't want to marry anybody. She wanted to marry anybody and stay home and settle into what she considered the stereotypical existence of a wife in those days. She wanted to work. She wanted to be productive. She wanted to retain her own voice. Evidently, during her dating years in Buffalo, that voice proclaimed this Declaration of Independence to every man who dated her in Buffalo. But she wasn't getting married. Until she met this man from Rochester, your father, who had his own voice, and who had the good sense to love her for exactly who she was. Funny, it's funny, she didn't want to be a, quote, traditional housewife. Non-traditional to her meant she wanted to work and be active and be out of the home, and also raise the kids, which I know she stayed home until Susan, you were in kindergarten. I think the world learned from Annabelle. I mean, that's what people try to do. You three could hear that strong voice because she was your number one fan. She was your cheering section. She was your champion. She was verbally proud of you, and she believed in you. And that voice was very keenly interested in what you were doing and what the grandchildren were doing, their interests, their plans. There was no generation gap. That voice was always positive, as Mike said, always positive, hopeful, confident. It could get done. I will get it done. We can get it done. That was her voice. Barry, you once told me that she told you that a certain job could get done, and you found yourself in a career sitting at your late father-in-law's desk because of her voice. You know, a lot of people say a lot of words, strong words. They don't do anything about it, but they sound nice. But Annabelle was not only insistent and outspoken for the values she believed in. Annabelle didn't just talk the talk. She walked the walk. Her life was activity. Her life was participation. Her life was contribution. With family and friends, she was present, from dance competitions to Hanukkah parties to Yiddish songs to book club for 60, 65 years. One of the values of her life was connecting to people of all ages and maintaining long-term friendships. She could connect to her children and grandchildren and their friends who were when they were teenagers, and to people who were quite a few years older. And she remained active. She was biking into her 90s. And Susan, I saw your mom at services for so many years. I saw you and her together many times. Not every time. Sometimes she came without you, but many times. She was on the regular tour route, you know. We always passed each other. Big eyes, big smile, cute in her 90s, so vibrant, a role model for being alive. Of course, of all the connections and all the people she could relate to, you all know that your mother and your father developed the deepest of connections. And it really helped to define who they were. She appreciated his quick wit and his humor and the repartee that they shared. And she knew she had his devotion. He truly loved her completely and respected her. They respected each other. They were affectionate. There was romance. There was dedication. And from this, you three were lucky enough to grow up in a stable and secure, love-filled home with parents who you learned from, in addition to admiring, in addition to loving. And your mom was always a great listener, and she advised you. When your father passed still young, this was a transition that you can't really explain unless you've experienced it. It could have challenged anyone's strength and anyone's outlook on life. Annabelle, though, had more years, and she was blessed with those years, and she lived with a spirit that was uniquely her own. I know that Annabelle's father was very, very important to her in a childhood that had its challenges in the family and with anti-Semitism in the larger community. Annabelle always had her father. She needed someone like her father, and she knew how special he was. And I think she learned the impact that one person can have on another person's life, because he certainly had that impact on her, that one person can make a difference. Honestly, I think Annabelle was the same way. I think Annabelle made a great impact on people. The power of one person. Who could deny Annabelle's impact for all the people, those senior adults at the JCC, who she organized and arranged programming for? She used her creative mind to expand and innovate that program. She made them a world. She made a difference. Whether it was senior adults or teens, or her time teaching kindergarten or teaching in the inner city, or park preschool, or school PTA later on, Annabelle made an impact. And our own sisterhood, of course, in her Yiddish programming, she made a difference. Listen, she made a difference, right? She wanted to keep your brother in the ice cream store, and history happened from there, right? The rest is history. As a mom, she was fair. No favoritism. She loved you all. She supported you. But I know, Nikki, you had a beef. You had a beef. You said she gave you a curfew. 11 p.m. Outrageous. Seems so unfair. But I was just thinking, I just want to close with this thought. I think a message was being passed and experience by having a curfew that's relevant. Having a curfew means there's a limit. There's an ending to all days. It's always too soon, right? Curfews always should be later than it is. But a curfew is real. It ends the day. No matter how much fun the day, no matter how vibrant the life, no matter how much you love and how much you add to those around you and how much you give, there's a curfew. And it seems unfair, but 11 p.m. comes, or 94 years and 10 months and 1 day. It comes. The curfew comes, and the curfew has arrived. And maybe that's why Annabelle kept living a full life all these years, because she knew a curfew would come. But in this case, Annabelle had no regrets. Nothing undone, nothing that wasn't savored. She lived with a good name, and she died with a good name. I know there are members of the family.
Thank you all for coming, really. Okay, is that okay?
Better.
And while it is very sad to see my mom fantastic, yeah, I'm very happy to talk about her. A psych professor of mine once said that names can shape your personality, for better or for worse. My mom's original name was Annabelle Raccoon. Like, who does that? Who gives her kid that name? Annabelle endured a fair amount of teasing and nicknames, like Bananabelle. My grandparents fought over her name for a little too long, so when my mom went to get her first passport at the age of 44, her birth certificate had her registered as Baby Girl Raccoon, and she had to go to court to get it legally changed. I said, "Mom, this is the perfect opportunity to change her name into a normal one," but she wouldn't hear of it. Annabelle Raccoon turned out to not be a typical person. As Rabbi Stock mentioned, my mom had challenges growing up. She didn't get along with her own mother, who was forever jealous and critical of her, while her father adored her. I once asked my mom if she would miss her mom when she was gone. My mom looked me straight in the eye and she said, "Yeah, like a toothache." She was an unapologetic straight shooter. She also used to tell me that she learned how to make decisions and how to parent from my grandmother. That whatever my grandmother did, she did the opposite, which is not easy. Annabelle hated family dysfunction and politics, and she worked hard to keep it at bay in our family. None of us ever felt like another sibling was favored, and each of us, when we spoke to Rabbi Scott, explained that she was always our biggest fan. She always, like multiple times a day even, said she was proud of us at every opportunity. My mom was ahead of her time. She regularly sought out professionals to help her figure out how to successfully navigate confusing interpersonal dynamics. She taught me how to see, care about, and address potentially unhealthy family and relationship dynamics, and for this, I am truly grateful. Another dynamic she couldn't tolerate was around inequality. We grew up in a time when most women didn't work outside the home and most men didn't work inside the home. My dad also had a strong sense of fairness, but like most men, he was blind to some of the ways in which there was unequal division of labor. The day after my mom's book club read and dissected The Feminine Mystique, things changed in our house, like the next day. I have no idea what Annabelle said, but my dad understood and respected the full force of her argument. He knew how important his stepping up and doing more at home was to their relationship, and that they were modeling for us kids a fairer way to live.